The home of the brave, the land of the free, and also a place with some banned items. Yes, that last part is true. There are many foods and drinks that Americans can't legally consume, but we're going to explore them anyway. From luxury treats to powerful energy drinks, let's examine 20 foods that you aren't allowed to eat in the USA. Number 20. The complexities of horse meat laws. I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse, says the old phrase. Of course, even if you were that hungry, you couldn't actually eat a horse. Not that I think you don't have the appetite. I mean, practically, it's probably very difficult to find a horse you would be allowed to eat because it's illegal, well, kind of. In the United States, it's pretty much legal to eat almost any meat you happen to find, from rabbit to squirrel and even raccoons. But the laws are a little murkier when it comes to horses, varying from state to state. You see, while it's illegal to sell horse meat in all 50 states, many states say it's totally fine to slaughter your horse for meat. US law, nothing quite like it. But while it may be legal in places, it doesn't mean it's encouraged. In 2007, the last 3 horse slaughterhouses in the US were officially shut down, making it all but impossible to buy horse meat or order it in a restaurant. And even today, animal rights activists are still pushing for stricter regulations, hoping to completely outlaw the slaughter and consumption of horses. Who knows whether they'll succeed, but I'm sure the horses are thrilled that people in Congress are talking about them again. Number 19. Sturgeon caviar's precarious future. Unless you're super rich, it's unlikely that you're going to be buying anybody caviar for Christmas. But if you are one of those super rich caviar gifters, you'll probably know that there's one kind of caviar that is off limits. Guess money really can't buy you happiness or sturgeon caviar. All over the world, sturgeon are on the brink of going extinct, and it's all thanks to this very delicious and costly delicacy. While it's perfectly legal to fish sturgeon, many countries worldwide regulate it, but that doesn't exactly solve the problem. I mean, the illegal trade exists for a reason, right? Still, it's a delicacy that's unavailable for purchase throughout the United States, who are apparently hoping for a significant rebound in the population numbers for everybody's favorite caviar fish. Sure, illegal activities are going on, but the caviar is still being sold on the underground caviar market. But hey, you kind of have to expect that when you outlaw something. Today, the WWF recommends against purchasing any kind of caviar from wild sturgeon, arguing that it's doing nothing but speeding up the extinction of a beautiful species. But if there's one thing we can guarantee, it's that the rich people of the world will look at this warning and give a very expensive shrug. Number 18. Shark fins banned in US. It sounds like an insane thing to say, but yeah, some people actually do have a desire to eat shark fins. I don't know who was the first to take a bite, but I take an educated guess and say they're probably not with us any longer. Shark fins are most commonly found in shark fin soup, a luxury delicacy typically found in Asian cuisine. For those of you who are curious, shark fin doesn't taste like anything. It's actually flavorless, with a kind of gelatinous, sinewy texture. Doesn't sound great, does it? Well, on June 18, 2021, the United States Senate seemed to agree, officially passing a bill that bans the sale of shark fins anywhere in the United States. So, if you were hoping to get a taste of that flavorless, textureless piece of muscle, you're out of luck, I'm afraid. However, you can eat a piece of polystyrene and probably get the same effect. Of course, nobody should really eat sharks. The mercury levels within the shark's meat are insanely high, usually far above the legal maximum amount. But who'd have thought that even in death, sharks are capable of inflicting a massive amount of fatal pain upon humans? Impressive work. Number 17. For Loco's controversial buzz. Some have long claimed that there's no such thing as bad publicity, but the people behind Four Loko will probably disagree with that, given that their product was publicly shamed by a government agency and eventually taken off the market. Still, great marketing, right? The original Four Loko drink famously mixed caffeine with alcohol, providing an energy high unlike any other. But then, on November 17, 2010, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration issued a warning letter to the company, saying that the caffeine was an unsafe food additive. The company behind Four Loko, Fusion Projects, was told that their products could be seized under federal law if they didn't change the recipe. Apparently, a recent FDA study had found that the caffeine was masking some of the cues people would rely on to determine how intoxicated they were, and if people can't figure out how drunk they are, well, I think we know the dangers of that. The ban led to a surprising black market of Four Loko products online, which apparently made some people quite a lot of money. But by December 2010, the company was forced to completely change its recipe to stay in business. Today, it's no longer marketed as an energy drink. Well, probably not everywhere. I imagine the black market is still pretty active. Who knows? Number 16. Mustard oil's recipe change. What the hell is mustard oil? Most of us living here in the West may not be familiar with this ingredient. Still, those living in India will be very familiar with it, or at least they were familiar with it. Mustard oil has long been a popular choice of cooking oil for millions of Indians, but like many other products, it's recently gone through a change in the recipe. In 1990, the Union Health Ministry decided to blend edible vegetable oils with mustard oil. But by 1998, many North Indian states witnessed the dropsy endemic, which saw 60 people die and 3,000 hospitalized. The research claimed it was all down to this uniquely hybrid mustard oil. From this point on, the government began a campaign against eating the oil, but none of them actually did anything about it because, well, profit and everything. Then the pandemic changed everything. On March 31st, 2021, India's Food Safety and Standards Authority decided to end the practice for good, banning the addition of other edible oils to mustard oils. Did that have any kind of impact on the health of Indians all over the country? Well, that we don't really know, but hey, can't hurt. Number 15. Silver Drage's decorative dilemma. Did you know that it's actually illegal to add silver to your food? In 1906, silver was officially banned as a food coloring additive. However, it's still perfectly legal to use silver dragees as food decoration, so long as you don't actually consume them. Try and make sense of that one. Silver dragees is the official name of those little bead-like silver sparkles you usually put on top of cupcakes and other baked treats. But according to the FDA regulations, they're totally fine for decoration, just not for consumption. Because, as it turns out, these tiny beads are coated in genuine silver, and when they became popular in the 1970s, the FDA just couldn't seem to shut them down. So, they compromised by saying they're fine to use, they just can't be eaten, which is a little like saying you can paint with all the colors, but people can never look at the finished work of art. However, a lawsuit in 2003 actually ended with the total ban of silver dragees in California, after they were proven to potentially cause argyria, a condition that turns the skin gray. Of course, that only happens if you consume an unthinkable amount of silver, so just don't pop silver dragees like they're Tic Tacs, and you should be perfectly fine. Number 14. Chilean sea-based conservation efforts. One of the biggest problems facing the fishing industry worldwide is also the most obvious: overfishing. At some point, there are just too many people fishing in the same waters. So, what's the best solution for overfishing? According to governments all over the world, it's an immediate and uncompromising ban. Okay, maybe it's not a ban per se, but it's still a pretty strict series of rules and regulations designed to protect the species from extinction. After seeing the effects of overfishing, the US government put the FDA on the case. Today, only certified Chilean sea bass fishing boats are allowed to harvest and sell this unique species, and the numbers are heavily regulated. So, it's not exactly easy to just get in there and start fishing. But before you start assuming that this is some kind of a unique US overreach, it's more of a global effort. 24 other countries have joined the US to either ban the Chilean sea bass or regulate its export. Either way, it's not the easiest fish in the world to get a taste of, unless of course you happen to be in the right place at the right time, in which case, congratulations, you just proved us completely wrong. Number 13. Taiwan's pig's blood cake controversy. We are now flying all the way over to Taiwan, where local chefs have crafted a delicacy that is controversial, shall we say? Sure, the English may have their blood sausage, and that's gross, but the Taiwanese decided to take it a little further and make a blood cake. The pig's blood cake is a street food delicacy that can be best summed up like this. It's a combination of steamed pork blood and sticky rice, coated in peanut powder and coriander, and served with dipping sauces. If any of that sounds delicious to you, more power to you, I guess, or to your stomach at least. However, if you don't live in Taiwan, good luck finding one of these things. The delicacy was banned in the US pretty quickly. The Department of Agriculture immediately announced a ban just as soon as it was found on American shores. No reason was ever given for the ban, but I imagine it was probably something along the lines of, "Good Lord, that thing is gross." Kinda hard to disagree with that, but hey, if it's something you're into, good for you. However, the Taiwanese government wasn't happy with the ban, believing it to be an attack on their local culture. Just wait until they see what Americans eat. Number 12. The legal status of absinthe. Is absinthe legal or is it illegal? The answer is a little more complicated than simply saying one way or another, but throughout history, the arrow has swung from one to the other. Let's dive into it a little, shall we? Absinthe is a highly alcoholic drink that was once believed to induce intense hallucinations. All of that comes down to the drink's ingredients, a collection of herbs including wormwood. The wormwood actually drove the government to ban the drink entirely until the ban was overturned in 1997, albeit with some strict regulations. Today, the FDA strictly regulates any and all absinthe sales, demanding that they contain less than 100 parts per million of thujone, a toxic chemical typically found in wormwood. If the drink contains any more of the chemical, it's illegal to sell within the United States. Of course, criminals don't tend to care about the law, so yeah, absinthe is still legal in many places around the world, with over 200 brands being produced in a dozen countries all over Europe. Because if ever there was a place where getting high and hallucinating was encouraged, it's going to be in Europe, right? Number 11. The hidden risks of sassafras oil. I have no way of knowing how many root beer connoisseurs we have watching today, but if you're one of those older fans, or you have an older relative who pulls the old root beer isn't what it was routine, they're not losing their mind. During the early days of root beer and teas, there was a popular ingredient in the recipes known as sassafras oil. Then, in the 1960s, the FDA came along and changed everything. It turns out that there was a compound in sassafras called safrole. The FDA studies found that safrole was a carcinogen and was proven to contribute to developing cancers. When the news came out, root beer manufacturers began removing sassafras oil from their production process, altering the taste but presumably preventing many people from untimely deaths. The only problem is that safrole hasn't gone away entirely. In fact, it's still around and can be found in the very popular and very illegal drug known today as MDMA. Meanwhile, root beer manufacturers are still out there trying to perfect safrole-free sassafras, hoping to get back to that original flavoring. But some scientists remain skeptical, claiming that even saffrool-free sassafras can increase the risk of life-threatening tumors. Man, we just can't enjoy anything without the risk of death. Number 10. Tonka beans, deliciously illegal. Chefs and artists, they create intricate works of art that we can see, smell, taste, and some ingredients are just so fascinating and thrilling that every chef wants to use them for their art, unless, of course, they happen to be illegal. The tonka bean is a flat, wrinkled legume native to South America, but that's kind of irrelevant because it's illegal to consume throughout the United States, according to the US government anyway. If you happen to find yourself in the right restaurant, you may have the opportunity to get a bite of this very illegal flavor. The reason for the ban comes down to a chemical compound found within the bean, coumarin. All foods containing this compound are considered to be adulterated and have been illegal since 1954. Tonka beans, of course, are a big source of coumarin, so are cinnamon, lavender, licorice, and a bunch of other plants that aren't illegal. The law so consistent. In fact, the tonka bean is pretty harmless if you eat it sensibly. You need to eat an unimaginable amount of the bean to fall ill, at least 30 entire beans, but in restaurants, the shavings of a single bean are enough for 80 plates, so unless you have a bottomless stomach and wallet, you're probably going to be just fine. Number 9. Redfish, a recipe for extinction. It's amazing how one chef can create a dish that revolutionizes the cultural food landscape. And no, that's not really an understatement. Meet Paul Prudhomme, a legendary New Orleans chef that made a fish so good it almost wiped out an entire species. Not kidding. In 1980, Chef Prudhomme publicized his latest creation, a recipe for blackened redfish. Some people decided to try it out for themselves and were so stunned by the delicious flavor that they told more people, and those people told people, and before you knew it, half of the United States knew all about this incredible recipe and just had to try it for themselves. Pretty soon, redfish was listed on the endangered species list, all because of one delicious fish. The situation got so bad that in 1986, the U.S. Commerce Department forced redfish fisheries to close down entirely, just to make sure the fish could recover. Today, however, redfish remains a forbidden meal. It's illegal to eat redfish in any U.S. state except for Mississippi. I'm not sure why Mississippi is the lone exception to the rule, but hey, has the U.S. law ever made sense? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say not really. Number 8. The dangerous delicacy of fugu. Do you remember that episode of The Simpsons where Homer eats the poisonous fish and is told he has 24 hours to live? Well, while most of the things that happen on the show are a little bit out there, that one is actually very realistic. You can learn a lot from The Simpsons. The fish in question was the Japanese pufferfish, also known as fugu. This Japanese delicacy is well known to sushi fans, but it's not exactly a mainstream treat. In fact, it's banned in most places around the world, including most of the US and the entirety of the European Union. So good luck finding one. You see, while many people consider the fish to be delicious, it's the skin and some of the organs within that are truly toxic, as they contain an extremely fatal poison called tetrodotoxin. When consumed by humans, tetrodotoxin can lead to paralysis or death, even if it's just a small bite. That's why, even in places where the fish is legal, it can only be prepared by those with a license. If the fish is cleaned even slightly incorrectly, it's potentially game over. So, I guess if fugu really is dangerous, can you imagine how many people have also done Sideshow Bob's rake walking routine? Number 7. The overfishing of Queen Conch. Yeah, it's number 7 on this list, but Queen Conch is number 1 on my mental list of best band names. In this case, the Queen Conch is a curious little sea creature that, in some cultures is recognized as a delicacy, but not in the United States of America. If you're a foodie visiting the Caribbean, you're probably going to encounter the queen conch at some point. After all, it's one of the most popular delicacies in the region. And at one time, it was also pretty popular in the Florida Keys. Not anymore, though. Pre-1970s, the queen conch was so popular that it had created a whole industry in the form of conch fisheries. But by the 1970s, that same industry collapsed due to overfishing, a common problem for many in the fishing industry. Too many hooks, not enough fish. That dramatic collapse of an entire industry forced Florida officials to take immediate and drastic action. They ordered a complete ban on the commercial or recreational harvest of queen conch in the state. So, if you happen to be looking to get a bite of queen conch, you might want to hop a plane to the Caribbean because you're sure as heck not going to taste it in the United States. Number 6. Pommac, Sweden's unique soda. Welcome to Sweden, home of IKEA, ABBA, and the works of Ingmar Bergman. But it's also home to something even more delicious, Pommac. This is a unique Swedish soda that you can't find anywhere else, which is a shame because it's basically alcohol without the alcohol. To be more specific, Pommac is basically a non-alcoholic, champagne-flavored soda. The drink is made by combining the juices of fruits and berries, a mixture which is then matured in oak barrels for 3 months. Yeah, this is a soft drink matured like wine. Can you imagine what would happen if you put Coca-Cola in an oak barrel? That stuff's like battery acid. It would just burn right through. Pommac was originally made for the Swedish upper classes as an alcohol-free substitute for alcoholic drinks like wine. Still, it's since become a wonderful treat for the whole country. For those of you who don't live in Sweden, I'm sure you're thinking about trying to make your own, right? I wouldn't bother, though. Actually, the recipe has been kept secret since its original creation. So, if you're not interested in getting wasted on wine or champagne, you'll just have to keep gulping down that tap water, or if you don't mind losing your teeth or burning through your internal organs, cola. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. Prime Energy drink has faced significant controversy and regulatory scrutiny due to its high caffeine content and marketing practices, which target a predominantly young audience. Each can contains 200 milligrams of caffeine, a level that can lead to side effects such as anxiety, shakiness, and heart palpitations, particularly concerning in children and teenagers. Various countries, including Canada, the Netherlands, and New Zealand, have banned or recalled the drink because it exceeds legal caffeine limits, raising serious public health concerns. Additionally, recent findings have revealed the presence of pure and polyfluoroalkyl substances, commonly known as forever chemicals, within the drink. These substances are associated with numerous health risks, including cancer and liver damage, leading to a lawsuit against the makers of Prime Energy. The ongoing litigation and the negative press surrounding these health risks have tarnished the brand's image and could prompt further regulatory actions. In the United States, there is growing apprehension that, similar to actions taken in other countries, Prime might soon face legal restrictions or even a ban. The presence of forever chemicals only adds to the urgency for regulatory review, considering their notorious persistence in the environment and their ability to accumulate in the human body over time. Consumers are increasingly wary of such ingredients in their beverages, and this could significantly impact the drink's popularity and sales. It is crucial for consumers to stay informed about these developments, as the safety concerns associated with Prime Energy drink continue to unfold, possibly leading to more stringent controls in markets worldwide. Number 5. Epois's cheese, banned in the USA. If you're lactose intolerant, you may want to look away now. If you think regular cheese is bad, just wait until you see the Epois's cheese, a dairy product so risky that it gave the USDA a heck of a lot of anxiety. According to cheese experts, yeah, those do exist. Epois's cheese is basically the ambassador of the stinky French cheese. This person goes on to describe the smell as like your 15-year-old son's socks after a baseball game, but in a nice way. Yeah, sure. While Epois's cheese is beloved in France and other European regions, it's totally banned in the USA. That's because Epois's cheese is an unpasteurized, raw milk cheese that's less than 60 days old, which creates a lot of concerns in the USDA. According to them, dairy products like this could easily be infected with listeria, and if that's the case, you're looking at a pretty awful outbreak of a bacterial illness that isn't fun. If you think lactose intolerance is rough, some companies import some FDA-approved, pasteurized Epoises, which apparently comes close to the original taste and disgusting-sounding smell of the cheese. But if you're a cheese lover looking to sample the ultimate stinky cheese, you're out of luck, unless you're willing to travel halfway around the world to taste some sweaty socks melon cheese. Whatever floats your boat, man. Number 4. The truth about Italian meats abroad. I expect some people will be pretty unhappy with this one. After all, you probably see salami or prosciutto every day at your local deli, right? Well, I'm sorry to say it, my friends, but those aren't authentic Italian meats because you're not in Italy, unless you are, in which case, carry on. Due to the complicated import-export requirements, all of those meats you see in the deli are American-made. However, some meats were just straight-up banned for a while, like culatello. This cured meat was banned from the US for decades. Eventually, in 1989, the US government decided that it was harmless and unlikely to start a nuclear war, and reversed the ban. And since then, American farmers have been making their own versions of culatello, with some people claiming that it's better than the Italian original. Somewhere, you can hear an Italian losing his mind. The original reason for banning culatello was actually health-related. In the 1970s, a swine disease outbreak led to many types of meat being banned, including this funky-tasting little number. But rest assured, even during this never-ending pandemic, you're now free to head to your local deli or butcher's and enjoy a delicious bite of culatello. I'm sorry to remind you of this, but just remember that it's not authentic. Number 3. Vegemite, misunderstood down under delicacy. Australians rejoice. We're about to discuss what may just be one of the most divisive foods on Earth. But is it banned in the United States? Well, that's a claim that's been going around since 2006, but it's not entirely true. In 2006, an Australian newspaper claimed that Vegemite had been banned in the United States, but it didn't just end there. The story went on to suggest that Australians entering the country were being searched for the illicit substance. Apparently, Vegemite contains folate, which is an additive used in many products in the United States, so the claims of a ban didn't make sense. However, it is true that you may not be able to taste the product in the United States unless you really seek it out. Since its invention, Vegemite hasn't been popular in the US, mostly because of its overly bitter taste. However, if you're somebody who's able to seek out a store that stocks imported items, you may just be in luck. Or if you're somebody that lives with the rest of us in the present day, you could just order some online. Either way, just be sure to ask an Australian for tips on how to correctly consume Vegemite. Apparently, there's a way to make it taste great, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a total myth. Number 2. Why swans are off the menu. Humans eat all manner of birds. Chicken, duck, pigeon, if you're fancy and are rich anyway. But there's one bird that seems to be off limits to just about everybody. The swan, which is interesting considering swans are jerks and by far the worst birds on the planet. Still, swans can be found in temperate climates all over the world, from the US to the UK and even farther afield. So, if they're so readily available and nobody likes them, why are they not on the menu? Well, the answer is they're an endangered species, or at least that's the reason in the United States. If you happen to live in the UK, there's a more interesting reason. The Queen kind of owns them all. Whether or not she ever actually eats one, well, that's just something we'll never know. But if you're an American, it doesn't matter anyway because you're just straight up never going to eat a swan again. Swans are the worst birds on the planet, so it's fascinating that they're not more readily eaten. But hey, if they're endangered, they deserve to be protected to survive, even if they are ungrateful, hyper-aggressive, and generally unpleasant to encounter in just about every single situation imaginable. But hey, no hard feelings. Number 1. School bans on Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Okay, so Flamin' Hot Cheetos aren't necessarily banned. I mean, you can still find them if you're really craving some spicy, cheesy goodness. But how easy they are to find depends very much on where you live, or more specifically, where you go. My God, since 2012, some school districts in California, New Mexico, and Illinois have banned Flamin' Hot Cheetos entirely. The reason? They're apparently not nutritious, which, let's be honest, is obvious, and some believe they may create a brain response similar to what is seen in individuals who are addicted to illicit substances, which is kind of a stretch, but hey, these are people who work on behalf of schools, and as we all know, you can't get a job like that if you're stupid, right? Right? Okay, maybe I'm wrong about that. But still, it's not a total ban, and there's a reason for that. The FDA just doesn't want to get involved. After all, it's kind of an unwinnable situation. You don't want to ban a snack food that everybody with half a brain knows isn't healthy, but you also don't want to undermine the school boards who allegedly bribe you to make questionable decisions. It's all one big, endless loop, a dilemma. Have you tasted any of these forbidden foods? What did you think of them? Let us know in the comments. Also check out our other cool videos showing up on screen right now. See you next time.